1. I don't know what to make of this. I've never felt this way before, and I just wanted to see what others thought. My friends and I, for the past 2 years, go on vacations and pick where we stay by Airbnb. Last year we had no problems, even though the house wasn't the nicest. But this year we were sure it was going to be a better experience. We got a house through this one man who had amazing reviews, and he was even verified on the app for the reviews he got. When we got to the house, nothing seemed wrong. It was an amazing deal and was a really nice place, only a mile from the beach. I never go into a house or a place I'm staying and think that it's haunted or someone was in there or anything, so I didn't think much of it. The house was set up as following. You walk in, on the right is a room with a bunk bed and a pull-out bed. I slept in there along with my friends E and N. On the left from the front door is the living room with a pull-out bed. The first night we slept there, my friend D slept on the pull-out couch. When you walk through the living room, it's the dining room and the kitchen. There was a back door in the kitchen that led out to the backyard. Before going into the kitchen, if you walked right, there was a hallway with a bathroom, and then another room with a double bed. My friend H and her girlfriend slept there. Next to that, my friends C and A slept together in another double bed. There was a basement that we were only able to get into from the backyard, and by using the house key. Like I said, nothing happened the first night, and we were all actually having a lot of fun. We went to the beach that night and got food and came back and played some drinking games. The next day we all went to the beach, and the only bad thing about the house was that it had one bathroom for 8 people. Me, DH, and her girlfriend went back before the other 4 to shower and just get ready for dinner, so it saved some time. D went downstairs in the basement to check it out, and we were all shocked to find out how nice it actually was. It was all redone with a huge couch, and some game tables, and a nice place for a washer and dryer. D decided that he would rather sleep down there since it was more space, and he could have his own little room. His room is in the basement at his house, so he's used to it, and doesn't get freaked out by anything like that. So that night we go for dinner and everything, and come home. D went to bed in the basement, and we made sure that he locked the door and all the doors and windows were locked. I get up around 2 a.m. to go to the bathroom by walking through the living room and dining room where I stated above. The street didn't have any lights, and since all the lights were off in the house, it was completely pitch black in the house. I didn't bring my phone or anything, and everyone was sleeping since we went to bed pretty early that night. I walked through the dining room and living room when I suddenly got a weird feeling. In the pitch black, I was in the living room and I felt something. It felt as if someone was standing in the corner of the living room. It was like the feeling if you're in a room and someone walks in but your back is to them, and you just feel someone in the room with you. It wasn't D since he was in the basement and we locked the doors so he couldn't come up even if he wanted to. I was frozen. I knew someone was in there. The only thing I could do was run through the living room and go to my room and lock the door. I didn't say anything to my friends because they like to think I'm paranoid about things, and I know they wouldn't take me seriously. The next day when we went to bed, I was the one to sleep on the pull-out bed. There was a window in my room right above my bed since it was on the floor. Everyone was sleeping and I was on my phone, since I go to bed pretty late. The house next to us had a driveway that was on the other side of their house, so it wasn't on our side. Something caught my attention from the window. It looked like a light. I thought it was a car light pulling into the driveway, but I realized that the driveway was on the other side of the house. I looked up and I saw a shadow of someone, and then it looked like an outline of a head looking in the window through the blinds. It could have been my imagination, but since I saw the light, it made me even more nervous. I was texting my friend from home and I was telling her how scared I was, and when I looked back, it was gone. The light had the thing that looked like a head. She was texting me telling me it probably wasn't anything. The next morning when I told my friends E and N, they of course thought that I was joking and just overreacting. I let it go because I knew what I was seeing and what I felt. The next day or the day after that, the 8 of us split up again, me, D and H and her girlfriend going up to shower before everyone else. The other 4 came back, and while N was in the shower, Everyone was in the living room, talking and just sitting on our phones waiting for her. There was a window in the shower with curtains, but the glass was foggy and blurry, so people from outside can't look in when you're showering. And walks out in her towel and looks at all of us and goes, "Who was tapping on the window?" We all looked at her and told her no one, since we were all on the couch the whole time. She looked at us like she didn't believe us and asked again. We assured her that we were all in the room the whole time. She said that it sounded like someone was tapping on the window, and since she thought it was one of us, she tapped back twice. A few seconds later, whatever it was tapped back at her twice. I looked at her, and she made a face at me, finally thinking what I've been seeing could be real. Nothing else happened when we were on the trip, but I never get the feeling as if some place is haunted, or there is someone in the house. That's the actual first time I've ever been scared to stay somewhere, and I can't explain what it was. 2. I don't know if I'm writing this for closure or insight or just to get it off my chest. This event happened about 5 months ago, but obviously it still bothers me. I've seen a counselor for it quite a few times, but the only solution at this time is anxiety medications until we can actually work through it. For the sake of not giving away identifying details, I'm going to refer to where I work as company. So anyways, here it goes. I'm contractually obligated to this company for the next year and have to continue this work until my time is over here. At this company, we're required to stand 24-hour shifts for security and watch over personnel. Usually, these shifts have 2 people, a senior personnel and a new personnel. I am the senior one and let my new person have the hours this occurred off, because he also had work the next day. So it was just me for the hours between 8 PM and 8 AM. I am a relatively small female, but usually handle stressful or intimidating situations well, so I never thought of this as a big deal and never had this problem before. A few months ago, I had a run-in with a man who was supposed to check in with me throughout the night before he checked in with my supervisors a few buildings over, as he was on restrictive watch. On this night, he was particularly drugged up and seriously drunk, which is against policy. He was half-dressed in uniform and just completely spastic. I had never met him before in my life, so I asked his name to check him in. But his speech was so slurred that I couldn't make out what he was saying. Or maybe he just didn't want me to know his name. Since he was obviously under the influence and was getting aggressive and frustrated with me asking him to repeat himself, I called my supervisors to let them know his condition, and they said they would send someone to come to me and check out the situation. This guy goes outside of the building to smoke and calm down before my supervisors arrive. Cool beans, right? Wrong. I then call my off-work co-workers that I'm good friends with to ask about this new person, and what's been happening with him since I wasn't told anything aside from him being restricted. She tells me the reasons he's restricted is because he choked his wife and tried to kill her, that he's violent, and I need to keep watch of him at all times when he's like this. As she's telling me this, I hear him start yelling at other people I'm watching over outside. Okay, great. I grab the biggest guy I can find, another person I'm supposed to be watching, but was a low risk, and go outside to try to calm him down. As we go out there, he's talking about killing himself, getting pussy, and being desperately horny. Me being a small female, I'm intimidated and fucking scared of this guy, and the way he was graphically detailing how he wanted to kill himself, and how he wanted to fuck whoever and whatever. He then turns to me and tells me he wants to fuck me in the mouth. Nope. I try to keep my composure and tell him that was an unprofessional comment, that he's inebriated at the moment, but to not talk to me like that, and went back inside to call for an estimated time my supervisors will be here. As I'm on the phone, this guy comes back in and starts climbing over my desk and pawing at me. He's blowing kisses and winking at me and tapping my arm that I'm holding the phone with. They tell me they must have forgot, but they will be on their way soon, and I ask them to please hurry because I'm really uncomfortable. This guy then gets mad at me for telling my supervisors I'm getting uncomfortable, and asks me if I want to feel what death feels like. At this point, I literally look this guy in the face and tell him to get the fuck away from me, or he's about to feel what teeth sliding down his throat feels like. Keep in mind that we are not allowed to have any weapons, and our only defense is to call our supervisors, who are allowed to have weapons. I lock myself in the back room and call my supervisor's supervisor and tell him everything that's been said, how aggressive he's being, how freaked out I am, and that things are escalating. My supervisor's supervisor then tells me there's nothing he can do since he himself is at a club, drunk, and cannot come to my building to detain this guy. I come out of the room and see this guy is now talking to my supervisor who had arrived about 15 minutes after I got off the phone with his supervisor. As they're talking about how he's not supposed to be doing drugs or drinking, this guy starts throwing the biggest gut-wrenching pity party I've ever seen. It was out of this world. This man hung his head down, held his hat in both hands, and told my supervisor how sorry he was for missing curfew. My supervisor then tells him how he's a good guy and it'll all be okay, and that he has good people like me watching over him all night. And if he felt lonely or needed someone to talk to, I'll be here because we're like a big family. Dude, I almost threw up from being so scared. I absolutely disassociated at this point, and this conversation seemed entirely fake and unreal. How could my supervisor be buying this act? What the fuck is going on? This guy just threatened my life, and from the look on his face, he was serious. I finally get the supervisor alone and tell him what had been said and done, and that I'm freaked out and don't feel safe, and requested hourly check-ins from our driving security officer. He agreed to let them know to add me to their route and told me to calm down, that he would be taking the guy to a different building for the night. I calmed myself, believing my supervisor would do this for me, and went out for a smoke break. By the time I came back, my supervisor was gone, but the guy was back at my desk. Fucking awesome. I was worried he would try to fuck with me more, so I tried to avoid even looking in his direction. Called my supervisor and let him know that this guy is now at my desk, and should be going to his building now. Why my supervisor didn't escort the guy from the building, I don't know. The guy heard me call my supervisor and finally left my building after telling me he'll be back to finish talking to me. Happy ending? Nope. I get a phone call from my supervisor telling me the guy never made it to his building, that he's running around somewhere and to call the police if I see him. They never sent security to check on me, and told me they found him about a week later. Yes, he was missing for a week. I have since gotten a restraining order and he has been sent to prison. Tonight I'm standing another 24 behind the same desk this all happened, and I still get waves of panic anytime someone comes to check in with me. I still shake, stutter, have cold sweats, and lose sleep the night before I know I'm working the 24-hour shift. So guy who made me scared of the dark again, let's never meet. 3. In 2018, my boyfriend Jonathan and I moved into our first apartment together. We were so excited that we would have our own place and finally be adults. It didn't take long in our new apartment to spot the complex's resident weirdo. He lived in our building on the 3rd floor, we were on the 1st floor. He was late 50s, early 60s, and had a face that seemed to lack all emotion. He drove an incredibly rusty old truck, and would go outside to feed the wild cats in the area every day. He seemed harmless, weird but harmless. One day, Jonathan and I get home from work, and he is outside, standing beside his truck. His eyes are glued to us, and shivers run down my spine. Jonathan tells me that he doesn't want to get out of the car because he's freaked out. I don't want to let him know that I am on edge too, so I reassure him that we're in the open, it's daylight, and nothing bad is going to happen. We get out of the car, and I open the trunk and get my backpack because I was planning on grading my students' vocabulary quizzes. And when I close the trunk and look up, the creepy old man is right in front of me. His eyes are wide, as if he just saw something that unnerved him. I jump and say, "Oh, I'm sorry you scared me. Is everything okay?"
"No,"
he responds.
"That woman that just moved into the 4th floor is such a bitch, right?"
His voice reminds me of someone I've heard before, but I couldn't put my finger on it. "Well, sir, I haven't actually met her. Is there—"
"She called the office about these cats, and now they're going to call animal control on them."
"Oh, wow, I'm so sorry."
"Yeah, I just figured you guys would feel the same way. This place is a fucking hellhole. They've got us shit through the past year."
He put his hand up to his mouth as if he's about to tell us a secret.
"I used to work for them, you know. I'd open and close the pools and clean up a bit around the property. They fired me a few months back once they found out about my lifestyle. They don't get our lifestyle,
he says, moving his finger around to point at himself, Jonathan, and I. I assumed that he meant because we are gay men, but even now I'm not entirely sure. Damn, that's fucked up, Jonathan says, trying to edge his way closer to the apartment door.
Yeah, they're all just a bunch of cocksuckers, and I hope that new bitch hears that,
he says, and at this point, I realize where I've heard his voice before. The A Nightmare on Elm Street films. He sounded just like Freddy Krueger. Jonathan says, well, I hope it's not too bad. I start working there on Monday.
Well, good luck. Try to keep your personal business quiet, otherwise you might be out of a job. Just don't turn into one of those assholes or karma may come back to get you.
Jonathan and I nervously laugh as well. Well, good luck with the cats. We'll see you around, I say, putting my hand on Jonathan's lower back and lightly pushing him toward our apartment.
All right, guys. Nice talking to you,
he said, still chuckling to himself. Although it was more creepy than joyous. It reminded me of the Joker from Batman, a maniacal laugh. A month passes, and we see the old man occasionally. The cats are still there, so we figure things worked out for him. However, we haven't had another conversation with him, thankfully. Jonathan managed to keep his job at the office, where there was not a trace of homophobia, and that's where he heard the news. Evicted? I asked Jonathan when he came home from work one day. Why are they evicting him? Well, my boss says that the office receives harassing calls from him on a weekly basis. Even some other tenants have reported being harassed by him. I mean, yeah, he's creepy, but is that enough to evict him? I guess so. They gave him a week to get all his shit and move. A week later, Jonathan was at the office, and the old man came in to return his keys. Jonathan was at the front desk, and had already phoned for the manager. But the old man started whispering things under his breath.
Get out of here. They're fucking cocksuckers. All of them, get out.
The manager comes in, grabs the keys, and escorts the creepy old man out of the building. A week went by, and we hadn't seen any trace of the old man. Jonathan and I were watching TV around 12 a.m. one night, when I hear a knock at the door. I pause the show, thinking that it may be a neighbor complaining that our TV is too loud. I look through our peephole to see the creepy old man staring at me. A smile covers his face, but it's unnatural. I've never seen a smile so big in my life, and it makes my whole body run cold. I start to stumble back from the door. Jonathan sees that I'm pale with fear. "Babe, what's wrong?" he whispers. "It's the old man," I whisper, tears welling up in my eyes. Jonathan gets off the couch and stands beside me. We're both facing the door. The man knocks again, and it startles me back to reality. I start walking to the kitchen, and I grab all the knives that I can. I tell Jonathan to go into the bathroom, which is the only room without a window, and call the police. I start to walk to the bathroom too when I hear keys start jangling against our door. I look back to find that the security bolt was not folded against the door. This works like a hotel room security bolt, where someone can use a key to open the deadbolt, but as long as the security bolt is across the door, it won't open fully. I silently make my way over to the door, knife in hand, and slowly and quietly fold the security bolt across the door. As soon as it touches the door, the old man bangs into the door, making me jump back a bit, almost dropping the knife. Then it went quiet. No keys, no knocks, no bangs, whispering.
"Come on, boys, let me in. It's just me. Come on, it's karma."
If I wasn't utterly freaked out before, I am now. I run to the bathroom and close the door quietly so he doesn't hear us moving around and know where we are. Jonathan has gotten off the phone with the 911 operator, and she said the police were on the way. 5 minutes pass and it's still quiet, so Jonathan wants me to go check if the man is still there. I look through the peephole and don't see anything. I sigh with relief, but then I think to check the parking lot to see if his truck is there. I go to our guest room with a view of the parking lot and peer through the blinds. His truck is parked right next to my vehicle, and I see that he's in the driver's seat of his truck. He's staring at me. Well, I can't be 100% sure, but it looks as if we've locked eyes. I don't want to move out of fear that I'd be giving myself away in the off chance that he wasn't actually looking at me. He opens his truck door, and that breaks me from my stupefied state. I run back to the bathroom and tell Jonathan to lock the door. I fill him in on the information. About 3 minutes pass, and we hear a banging on the door. Shit, I say under my breath. But then we hear, "County Police." I go and check the peephole. It's an officer, so I open it and tell him what's going on. The officer said he saw the truck outside, but no one was in it. He said he was going to look around the apartment to see what he could find. Jonathan and I continue to camp out in the bathroom. All of the lights in our apartment are now off. We wait to hear from the officer, but within 10 minutes, we start to hear a crazed screaming. Almost demonic noises, hisses, coughs, screams, laughs, etc. My heart drops, and I am overcome with more fear than before. What is going on? 5 minutes later, the police officer comes to our door and says that he found the man in the vacant apartment directly above ours. When the officer got there, the man was standing facing a corner and laughing under his breath. When the officer put the handcuffs on him, he began thrashing about, screaming, hissing, etc. The officer told us he had him in the cruiser and that they arrested him on breaking and entering charges. When the police officer left, we checked the front of our door where there were now dents from the man's keys. He struck our door with them after being unable to get in. The next day we went upstairs with the manager of the apartment complex, and we saw a small hole in the floor of the bathroom in that apartment. Apparently, the man must have known that we were hiding in our bathroom, and he was trying to get in there from the ceiling above us. Luckily, he didn't have any heavy-duty tools to do the trick. This hole was made by a screwdriver being stabbed into the linoleum floor, over and over again. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 414. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. I'd also like to take this opportunity to give a special shout out to Brandon Scott, the author of story number 3. Brandon has a YouTube channel. Let's see. Have a little look-see here. Only 76 subscribers right now, but perhaps we can do something about that. If you head on over and you like this content, click that little subscribe button. Looks like some quite diverse content there, and a friendly-looking fellow indeed. Okay, so I'm going to include a link to Brandon's YouTube page in the description of the video next to his story. Well, we've now reached the 2 fans to sleep at night stage of the summer. I expect it'll probably get a little bit hotter because, it's not the hottest it's ever been, but it is, hot enough where it's uncomfortable. Okay, that makes about a full week of the new schedule. It seems okay so far. I haven't noticed any negative impact on the channel, and most people seem quite happy that some days are getting the videos a bit earlier, especially as we get a bit closer to the weekend, so we'll try that for a few more weeks and we'll see how it goes. Okay, and with that I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.